This is Karl Moore talking management for the Global. Today I'm delighted to speak to Gautam Mukunda from the Harvard Business School. You've been doing some interesting looking at how leaders are chosen. What is some of your latest finding?
Sometimes a leader can take control in an organization who comes in either from the outside entirely or who in some way wasn't evaluated, wasn't what I call filtered by this organization's processes. So you could imagine an outsider CEO. You could imagine a president in the United States or a prime minister in Canada who just hadn't spent very long in politics before being elected to the highest office. And in fact, in the United States, this happens all the time. About half of our presidents come in essentially from a very short political background before they get elected. And in that scenario, what you could realize is that the people who are making the decision, and it's not just about the electorate, right? The elites, the people at the top of the situation who spent a lot of time in sort of smoke-filled back rooms with these people and have really gotten to know them. Well, if you have an outsider, that process can't take place. These people who are making the decision actually know surprisingly little about the person whom they might be giving power. And of course, the thing about giving power to someone is once you give it, it's very hard to take it back. They can make decisions that are not necessarily the ones that you approve of. So when you do this, when you bring in an unevaluated leader, someone who, it's not about experience, right? It's someone whom we just don't have that much data when we're making our choice about whether or not we want to give them the job. Then you might get someone who does things that not only that you would not do in their situation, but that no one else would do in their situation because they are so distinctive and so unique. And the surprising thing here is that it means that we should stop thinking about leaders as existing on a continuum where they have poor leaders and sort of mediocre leaders and good leaders and great leaders. It's not really a continuum. What you have is a group of leaders who are probably pretty good on average, but are also pretty interchangeable. It really doesn't matter which one you get. And then there's another group of leaders who are very different. And this other group of leaders is just not normal. They're out of the ordinary. They do things that other people wouldn't do. Sometimes they're great, sometimes they're awful. Some of these people would fail under any circumstances, right? They're the AlDunlap case, who is just pathological or just a really bad manager. And because you didn't have time to evaluate them, well, you get stuck with them. That was a bad luck. But some of these people are people who, because they have certain sets of biases and certain sets of preferences that normal leaders don't have, they'll fail under some circumstances and they'll succeed in others. So the incredibly conservative banking executive who decides to run his or her company as if the unemployment rate is going to hit 10%. Well, if you hire that person in 2006, they look like a genius. But if you hire them 10 years earlier or 10 years later, then they might not look that good at all because they're running extremely conservatively while all of their peers are taking big risks that work out because the economy's doing okay. So is that person better? Or are they just better suited for the moment in which they were hired, and essentially they got lucky because the circumstances matched with their situation? So when we think about this sort of high variance, right, worst or best, I think what this means is that we often talk about wanting the best leader for our situation. And I think one of the many things we can learn from this approach is that that language is actually betraying us. It means that there usually isn't a best leader. What there is a right leader. The way I think about this is that choosing a leader is not a ranking problem, it's a matching problem. You want to match the person to the situation, not choose the best person for all situations, because that person probably doesn't exist. It's kind of like dating. Just because someone is a great person doesn't mean that they're the right person for you. And in this situation, right, the best leader is a different way of thinking about the problem than the right leader.